Spike's New Brother Chapter 7. A Legacy Forgotten, a Legacy Revealed. As we last left our heroes Spike and John, they were basically asked one question from 7 mayors and 1 Princess of the Night. When is the wedding day? In a dark void, Spike and John were struggling to get their bearings. They had no idea where they were. John, do you know where we are? Spike asked John with a concerned look on his face. John just looked at Spike and shook his head with just as much concern as he had. No, I don't, man. There's nothing but pitch black. I mean, weren't we talking with just the girls a few seconds ago? Spike rubbed the bottom of his chin with his claw. Yeah, and then we went back to Ponyville. After all, it's all... But before he got to finish, both him and John were encased in a bright light. Spike and John shielded their eyes with their arms until the light faded. It took a few seconds for their eyes to adjust, but when it did, their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. John saw Luna, Princess of the Night, in a stunning wedding dress. It was a dark blue with black lining, streaks in the form of waves with stars covering every inch of the dress, and the moon was dead center of the back dress. John thought she was basically wearing the constellations, her mane styled in the ancient royal custom. John's heart stopped and his jaw dropped. And Spike looked at John and Luna, and he was just scratching the top of his head trying to figure out why Luna was dressed like that. Luna, why are you dressed like that? Honey, why wouldn't she be wearing that? It's her wedding day after all. As for us as well. John and Spike's eyes widened to the size of watermelons when they snapped their heads around to the mysterious voice. What? They shouted in unison. As the mysterious figure turned out to be none other than Twilight Sparkle wearing a wedding dress, basically the same one as Rarity had made when she first made clothes for every pony, but newer versions though. The sight that felled them nearly made his heart snap in two. Spike was about to open his mouth to protest when he realized that she wasn't alone. Rarity, Applejack, Pinkie Pie, Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, and Trixie, all of them were wearing beautiful wedding dresses. Fluttershy's dress made her look like a nature goddess who was spewing life itself. Pinkie Pie's dress was pink with pictures of candy canes and lollipops, made her look like the queen of party and candy. Her great personality made her glow even more. Applejack's dress basically fit her to the core. She looked like a hot, sexy cowgirl that most men, or stallions in this case, would drop dead for. She wore her signature hat plus sexy cowgirl boots, and she looked like a model out of every stallion's fantasy. Then there was Rainbow Dash, and she looked more like a warrior. On her dress were the symbols of her cutie mark, and she resembled something out of Greek mythology. Beautiful, strong, demanding, respectful, and noble. It took Spike's breath away. Basically, Rainbow Dash screamed that she was the most beautiful yet fastest Pegasus in Equestria. Trixie almost took Spike's breath away. She was wearing a light crystal dress, stars and magical symbols were etched into the clothing of her dress to match the coloring of her mane, and a glow of a bright, brilliant white light. It seemed like she was absorbing it, adding to the beauty and her power as well. Spike truly believed at that moment, any second, she would sprout wings and just become a princess. And last but not least, Rarity. Spike couldn't take it anymore. He thought his soul would jump out of his body at that point. And Rarity's dress was crystal white with white diamonds and crazy blue diamonds covering every single inch and cranny of the dress as it hugged every corner of her. Spike's mind was about to explode, but instead he just used his mouth. What? Did I die? Am I in paradise? But why are you all dressed like that? John shook his head in agreement, but he didn't take his eyes off Luna. He couldn't. He wouldn't dare. Her beauty was just too great. Hey, oh boy, man, I got nothing, he said with a love-struck, goofy expression on his face. Spike couldn't argue. He had the same expression on his face as well. Gosh, if I didn't know any better, I think this was art. Yeah, it's art. Oh my our wedding, they said in unison, their color draining from their bodies with shock. Then came a voice the two were already familiar with. Why, of course it's your wedding day, silly boys. We've been preparing it for months. Spike and John snapped their heads towards Celestia, confused. Wait, months? Spike gasped. It was only 10 seconds ago since we started talking about it. Yeah, that's right, John agreed. Where did we go from 10 seconds to months? And wow, Spike, where did you get that wedding tuxedo? Spike hesitated, but he looked down to his chest, and sure enough, he was wearing one of the finest and most stylish suits he'd ever seen. It looked like something a king would wear. It was basically a tuxedo, split tails, and on it were symbols, each one representing the elements of harmony. The last 3 were a picture of the moon with a magician's hat in the background representing Trixie's family name on the back. with the sun and the moon, of course, representing his mother and Aunt Luna. Spike just couldn't believe it. He loved it. He never had something so fancy in his life before. And Spike looked to his brother and gasped in awe. Me? What about you? You look like a king out of the ancient times. John was puzzled. He went to a nearby mirror that somehow appeared out of nowhere, and the suit was a golden human tuxedo, long-sleeve shirt with long-sleeve pants to match. However, they were gold-colored with black streaks and stars in the streaks. Every time he moved, the constellations on his suit changed, and it took his breath away. John looked back at Spike. What is going on here? John asked. What do you think it is, darling? Luna trotted up to him and kissed him on the lips, making John blush from ear to ear. It's our wedding day. Now hurry up and say I do. Exactly! Shouted 7 young mares, now looking at Spike. Celestia trotted up between John and Spike. Come now, every pony's waiting. Minister, please continue. John and Spike turned around the corner to the center of the room. Celestia's horn began to glow, brightening the room. Then they just realized where they were. At a wedding church in Canterlot. How the hey did we get here? They shouted in unison. Standing behind the stand was the minister pony in question. Young man, young dragon, you may now kiss the brides. The moment he said that, the girls started surrounding them, making sure they couldn't get away. John and Spike were now backed into one corner of the church, desperately trying to find a way out. I don't think so, Twilight intervened. We made sure to make this church escape-proof so you couldn't get away. We are getting married now. Yes, John, we are, Luna chuckled. I can't wait to see my children a year from now. Celestia was laughing her heart out. Same here, she replied with a smile. I can't wait for the joyous sounds of little hooves running around and claws too, and of course from you and John, Celestia cooed. Spike and John were scared to death, and they only did the one thing they can do. They screamed their hearts out. Spike woke up flailing his arms frantically, but then stopped as he realized that he was back at Twilight's treehouse. Spike then wiped the sweat off his brow, letting out a relieved sigh. By the dragons of old and new. Oh, it's just a dream. For now. Spike staggered. Spike knew the dream was going to be a reality very soon. He just couldn't believe it was happening. Trixie and the main 6 were in love with him, and they wanted to marry him. Spike rubbed his claw over his scales in total defeat. Well, looks like I'm going to have 7 new wives, but first I need to get to know each and every pony, even more than I do now, if I'm going to make this marriage work. Yeah, that's what I gotta do. Spike undid the covers and hopped out of the bed. He then realized that it wasn't his bed. Huh? Hey, isn't this But before he could finish, in the distance he heard the sound of wild galloping. It came from the lobby downstairs and rushing up to the bedroom. The door busted open to see a sobbing Twilight, and she nearly speared Spike into the ground to console him. But due to his newfound strength, he just held his ground. Spike! Spike, are you okay? Twilight asked, comforting him. What's wrong? Are you gonna leave again? Please don't, please! Twilight said, crying into one of his shoulders. Spike only stared down at the crying mare and sighed. He then began to stroke her mane, trying to comfort her. Hey, Twilight, calm down. I'm not going anywhere, remember? He placed a claw under her chin and lifted her head so they would be eye to eye. They both stared into each other's eyes for a few seconds until Twilight finally spoke. You're not? Promise me, Pinky promise me, Twilight demanded. Yes, I pinky promise I'm not leaving. Just had a funny dream, is all. Spike chuckled. Twilight cocked her head back, and at that point she dried up her tears, feeling relieved that Spike wasn't going anywhere. Then something clicked in her head to what Spike had just said a few seconds ago. She got a sinister smile. What kind of dream was it? Twilight asked. Was it about you, John, and our wedding day? Spike then started sweating bullets. He couldn't mouth the words at how she figured out so quickly. I knew it! Twilight smiled, giving him another big hug. Meanwhile, back at Canterlot, the same thing was happening to our other young hero. Ah! Where am I? He looked around the room, his forehead also covered in sweat. Man, I want to marry as much as the next guy, but not if it means I get to be ripped apart. We are sorry about that. Art thou all right, my darling? Luna asked. John turned his head to the sound of which he saw was Luna gazing at him passionately. John was spooked a little bit, but shook it off. Oh, hi, Luna. Just a really weird dream, said John, smiling nervously. Luna looked at him and gave him a sly smile.
Was it about the wedding? You know, the one where you were in your fancy golden tuxedo and you and Spike were about to be wedded to all of us?
John snapped his head at Luna, looking at her square in the eye, shocked, then chuckled as he figured it out. Right, you have magical powers that let you go into people's dreams, and watch them like you were living in the moment, also in a dream drop. Heh, forgot you could do that. Luna was shocked for a few seconds, but then chuckled lightly.
Yes,
Luna replied with a smile.
it seems your human world knowledge of us has answered my question.
John then gave her a sinister smile.
All but one. Can you link with a person's dream if someone kisses you?
Luna cocked her head slightly to the right, wondering what he meant by that and why he gave her a sinister smile.
What does thou...
Just then, John placed his arm around her neck and pulled her into a deep kiss. At that moment, Luna lost control of her magic. John's eyes began to glow white, as did Luna's. They were doing something only a few had ever done before: mind drifting. When the two beings are truly in love, they both share memories of their past and possible future. Suddenly, Luna saw John's past. She was in the middle of a street, and it was raining, and there was a metal carriage that Luna never saw before. She was amazed by his design.
My goodness, we're dream drifting and is that a horseless carriage? This is probably John's memory.
She suddenly blushed after she realized how she got here.
Why, that little romantic. If he keeps this up, I will marry him tomorrow if I need to. Oh well, might as well get to know him a little better,
She said with a squeal. She started walking down the road until she heard the one name she knew all too well coming from the metal carriage. Well, John, you three now, you're beginning to be a big boy, the male human spoke.
My little baby is growing up so fast,
The female human added. Luna started to squeal inside her head when she was just getting close to the car.
My John?
Replied Luna as her face brightened up.
My John at 3 years old? Wait for me, I have to see this,
She shouted as she began to spread her wings out to get caught up with the new view. She phased into the car. After all, it was a memory. It was easy to get in and out with no problem, like when you step through a hologram. What Luna saw made her heart stop. A man was driving the car. He looked like the older version of John, except he was wearing a unique red battle armor and helmet, and was resting in the middle of the council. The vehicle that they were driving was a Warthog, a civilian model. It didn't have the gun that the UNSC model would usually have. John's father was a captain, Joseph G. Wells, aka Spartan, a unique trained soldier specifically to fight the Covenant, an alien race that had declared war on humanity. However, humanity, after several years of fighting, at last managed to defeat them. However, there was a few ragtag squadrons left in the part of the galaxy, so Spartans were still needed to clear them out. Jessie Wells, John's mother, was also a Spartan. Her armor was blue, but she was just upset because of the last 3 years of ending the war. They really couldn't celebrate John's birthday. Jessie was always upset when his birthday came around because she felt like a stranger to John, and his father felt the same. They turned to see each other, tears in their eyes. This year, they had hoped to spend at least one birthday with their son, since the last 3 years they were busy fighting the Covenant, and not once did they celebrate his birthday. Jessie turned to the back of the car.
Hi, honey. This year we're giving you a big party for you with lots of presents. You've waited long enough, and after this year, the war is finally over, then we'll finally get to spend more time with you.
John's father turned, smiling at his wife. Then he looked back to his son. That's right, my boy. No war for us all. Instead, we will watch you grow into a man and then one day help you with your family as God intended. John gave a huge smile at his parents.
I love you, Mama. Love you too, Papa. You're the best and strongest.
At that moment, his parents wanted to stop the car and hug him. That was the first time that they felt like they had ever bonded with their little boy. Luna was just sitting there with tears coming down her face. She started to light up when they saw John's baby face.
Oh, my Equestria, he is so cute. I could just love him to death. And his father is so handsome. I guess that's what John will look like in a few years from now. And his mother looks so strong and beautiful, and she has such a big heart. I can see where John got his traits from,
She said. But what she saw next and heard would only sadden her heart for young John. Joseph was now more excited to get to the military base so he could turn on his resignation papers. The same went with his wife.
That's right, Joseph. No more bloodshed. No more. Just no more. I'm just glad.
Before she could finish, the communicator in her helmet went off. Attention all units, attention. Covenant battle cruisers have been spotted in Sector 29569. Delta Charlie 9. All Spartans report to battle. I repeat, all Spartans report to battle. What the hell? You gotta be kidding me. Of all days, those split chins to attack, they pick my son's birthday, Joseph said, outraged at their predicament.
Good for nothing freaks, they don't know when they've been beaten. Again, I have to miss my little boy's special day again. I assure those split-chinned freaks this would be the last time they interfere with my family,
Jessie yelled in anger. Luna was shocked. She'd never seen any pony, or in this case anybody, this mad before.
Oh my. I feel sorry for the enemy. Never come between a parent and its child.
She kept quiet and watched the rest of the events unfold, but she didn't like what she was about to see. John looked at his parents again in the back seat with a sense of knowing what was about to happen.
Mama? Papa? Is you going to fight again? No birthday again?
Jessie and Joseph returned their attention to John, tears in their eyes. Joseph didn't know how to say it, but he just came out and said it, choking every word. I'm afraid so, son. The enemy doesn't know when to give up.
But listen, John, when we get back, we promise we will never leave you again, and we'll spend every birthday together,
she said, tears running down her eyes at every single word. She knew that there was no excuse for missing her son's birthday, especially for 3 years. They drove up to the military base and they took John out of his booster seat. Joseph held him in his arms as they walked by the front door down the main lobby, past 2 big sliding door cores, which revealed the Marines scrabbling to their posts, ready for action, boarding the Pelicans' aerial combat units the Marines used. Jessie noted the front counter sergeant in charge of that station accepting applications. His name was Andrew, and he was an African-American person, also serving with Joseph and Jessie on the front lines, and he knew that this year they wanted out, and when he saw Jessie and Joseph coming right at them, he knew it really wasn't going to end well. Ah, crap. Listen, it was not my idea. If it was up to me, you two would be out of the military already, he said, hoping they wouldn't kill him. Joseph walked up to him with John in tow. You see this boy? This is my son. We have been retired. We're here to turn in our papers and make it official. And all of a sudden, we have to go back to battle? What the hell? What happened there? For 10 years, there has not been Covenant fleets in that area. Not in 10 years. Andrew was just taking the heat, and Jessie decided to put in her 2 cents in as well. She had a good idea at the time what was going on.
Let me guess. It's some glory-hogging general that is just trying to get his last bits of glory and provoke the stray Covenant fleet.
Andrew held his head down in shame. Yeah, that's about the size of it. From the hotshot general. She did just that. She thought she could take a small fleet of 500, but turns out it was 20,000. Joseph and Jessie couldn't believe what he just heard. 20,000! Okay, let me guess. We have to clean up a mess that this general left behind. Joseph couldn't believe what he was hearing. Andrew just shook his head in agreement. Yes, I won't lie. This is the biggest fleet we've seen in years. If we don't stop them now, Earth is doomed.
It's just not fair. How can humans be so dumb? If they had just left them alone, they would have gone back to their home world and the war would be over. But no. They have no regard for people who have families and want to spend time with them.
Luna at the time watched and heard everything. She was definitely on their side, especially Jessie.
You go, girl. Tell that scoundrel. Show them a mother's rage. And you, Joseph, fight for your family as a father.
At that moment, said general of the fleet approached them.
Do you have something to say?
Joseph and Jessie turned around to see a woman with silver hair. She stood about 6 feet tall, very muscular, your typical general. Jessie wasted no time as she ran up to the general and punched her square in the face.
Hell yeah, we do! Our orders were to destroy stragglers, not chase them down!
Jessie shouted at the general.
Which causes the mess we're in now. Do you have any idea how many men and women will die today, all because of your search for glory? Your people sit behind your desks, while you, your generals, sit behind the command centers of the ship, while we soldiers risk everything and get very little in return, while you big shots gets it all.
Joseph grabbed his wife by the shoulder and pulled her back. He then towered over the fallen general. My wife is right. The last time I checked, only the highest generals in HQ have those orders. Generals of second class don't have those abilities. You are in that class. What gave you the right to make such a stupid decision? The general looked at both of them with anger, but before she could say another word, another voice stepped in. She did not, and she's going to face military consequences for her action. First off trial, second court-martial, and third, 25 years to life for the death of 3 cruisers that had a crew of 500. MPs, take this sorry-ass excuse of a general away. All three looked at the general, and it was a general that was respected for his skills on and off the battlefield. Joseph looked at him with a smile. "Oh, General Hawk," he replied, sticking out his hand to shake General Hawk's hand. "It's good to see you, sir." General Hawk didn't really have the same expression of happiness. "Hi, Joseph. Hi, Jesse. I'm so sorry. Believe me, I never meant for this to happen. I never thought one of my own generals that I had trained would do something so stupid." As he said this, the MPs were taking the said general away to be trialed. He then looked back to Joseph and Jesse. "All I ask is just one last bit of service from you two. After this, the war will be truly over, and if you want, I will watch Little John until you get back." Joseph and Jesse looked at each other, then handed John over to Jen. Hawk then geared up, and they walked over to Hawk and addressed their son. At that moment, Luna was still watching, and she knew where this was going, and it hit her in a sudden flash of realization.
No, this must be the day his parents...
Sure enough, it was near the next day. General Hawk awoke and turned on the TV and was shocked at what he saw. Out of 50,000 ships that engaged the 20,000 Covenants, only 5,000 made it back. The names of the soldiers that had died in action were shown on the screen, and with a sad heart, John's mother and father were among them.
No, God, no.
No, General Hawk said in disbelief.
I promised them that they could have time with their son.
I'll make sure that sorry excuse of a general gets hanged by her neck. Just then he heard crying. His blood ran cold, and he turned around to see that it was Little John crying his eyes out.
Mama and Papa didn't make it, but they can't miss my birthday. They promised.
Oh no, Luna cried. She cried so much, it just hurt. She tried to embrace him, but as she did, she ran right through him. She had forgotten it was only just his memory, but that didn't stop the pain in her heart. She had been banished by her own sister, but this was just much worse. Never truly knowing your parents since birth because of war. To have them promise you that you would be together only to be taken away. She was surprised that he was still in his right mind and how he had such a great heart. General Hawk tried to stop the boy from running out the door.
Look, John, stop! Stop!
General Hawk had a leg injury he kind of sustained from the earlier years of war, which prevented him from catching the younger boy. By the time he got to his feet, the boy was long gone. He ran out of his porch and yelled,
John, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything.
He broke down to his knees, crying for two of his best friends that had died, and their son was alone. After that, General Hawk looked for John for nearly a year, but had no luck. He was then needed back on the front lines to clean up the little mess, and to finally announce that the war was over. After that, Hawk just retired from the army to look for Little John for 2 more years before giving up, with a broken heart.